How to get comfortable putting your work online. The other title I was considering for this was How to do self-promotion without being obnoxious. I titled these based on whatever I needed to hear, say 3 or 4 years ago. The particular specific information that I was looking for 3 or 4 years ago. I assume it's needed by at least one other person. So if that's you, this is for you. I'm going to make this one short. Just have a few points to get through. It's intended to be very practical. I want you to be able to hear this and to know, coming off of this, how to get comfortable putting your stuff online. Why would we want to talk about this? Well, for starters, I'm an actualization coach, and so I'm interested in you becoming self-actualized. And so if you're an artist, if you are an up-and-coming entrepreneur or thought leader, or someone who wishes to create some sort of presence for yourself in the world, then getting comfortable putting something online is pretty front and center to making that happen. I think we could all agree. So I have a few points I want to get through, and I just want to start by talking about how this fear shows up, because the fear of putting your stuff online is just one fear, but it's sort of like an umbrella under which there's a lot of other sub-fears. So I'm just going to name them here. This is about as many as I could think of. For some people, it's the fear of taking up space. Like you feel like you want to apologize for yourself. Oh, I'm sorry for showing up on your screen. I'm sorry for speaking to you. Please don't pay attention to me. Please don't watch my stuff. There's a fear, of course, around being cringe. Like you not wanting to show up and people look at you and go, ooh, that's cringe. There's the fear, of course, of being seen, which is like feeling unsafe if you're being seen or being looked at, feeling unsafe in that way. And then conversely, by contrast, is the fear of being ignored. It's like, what if you put something online and nobody cares? It would feel like rejection. It would feel like unworthiness. And then, of course, there comes the fear of being judged. Like imagine, I remember for the longest time, like I'd put something online, but I would, like on YouTube, say here, but I wouldn't want anybody that I know to watch it. I only want strangers to watch my stuff. And it would just feel uncomfortable. Even if I was like if I ever like saw maybe over somebody's shoulder, them on their phone on YouTube, and then one of my thumbnails popped up, I'd be like, don't watch it, don't look at it, because there's just this fear of judgment. And then there's also this fear of being obnoxious. And so that was in the title because especially when it comes to something like self-promotion, and by self-promotion, I mean like not necessarily just business, but like putting something out with the intention to gather interest and attention and traffic. Like, hey, come look at me, like that's self-promotion. So the problem with that is that a lot of good, decent, hardworking, upstanding citizens such as yourself and myself, we have seen self-promotion out there, and a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is really skeezy, and it's unpleasant, and it's manipulative, and you don't really like it, and you don't really feel respected when you receive this kind of material. And so we will look at that kind of thing, and we will see that it works, which is a bit of a problem. Like doing sort of manipulative psychology, manipulative marketing, it works. And a lot of us suspect, well, if I were willing to do that, if I gave myself permission to do that kind of thing, then I would. But then there's an unwillingness to do it because we don't want to take on that kind of vibration. We don't want to create that kind of presence in the world. And so as a result, we run into this problem of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, not doing any marketing at all, because we just don't want to do any self-promotion at all for the fear of being obnoxious. So this is another fear too. So I just want to say on the outset that if there's any denial in you about the importance of putting your work online, let's bring that to a close. If it is your desire to be an artist of any kind, if it's your desire to create a business of probably any kind, like any sort of online business, but even like any sort of business in person, there will usually need to be an online component. If you wish to get into politics, if you wish to create a significant presence in the world in the name of service, then an online element will be necessary, and being exposed to the public online will therefore be necessary. So you have to decide, I guess, whether or not you're going to see if you can circumvent that, in which case perhaps you can, and that, all the best to you. But if you've decided that really the only way out is through, that you need to figure out how to get comfortable with this, then let us continue. So again, the first order of business is to accept, yes, indeed, you will need to become comfortable with this. You will need to learn how to be comfortable showing up online for everybody to see and look at and judge and ignore or look at or see, or any of these things that is scary about it. So one way of doing this, one of a handful of ways, is to have enough respect for your voice and to have that respect be larger than your fear of being seen or judged or being online. Where what you'll notice, what I've noticed in myself and with people that I work with, say, and also just casual acquaintances, is that in almost everybody, there is a long-standing desire to create something, to do something, to express oneself in some way. And this longing for self-expression doesn't go anywhere. Although it can maybe change its shape in slight topical ways over time, the basic thrust remains for months, for years, for decades. It just waits patiently, impatiently for its expression. Therefore, would you be willing to respect your voice? Would you be willing to respect the dormant, incipient, uncreated creation in you that is longing for creation? Would you be willing to accept, or at least assume, that it is of value, that it deserves to be seen, and that there is a corresponding need for it, a corresponding desire for this uncreated creation in you from out there? So in other words, there's a desire from you to create it, and there's a desire from without for that to be received from you. You could believe this or not, or you can at minimum act as if it were true, and that would still benefit you greatly. And then that wouldn't necessarily make it less scary, but it would make the motivation sufficient to overcome the fear. And so this is a very powerful decision that you can make right now. I trust my voice. I respect my voice. I respect the process of self-expression. I respect my mission, what I'm here to do, my purpose. I respect it enough to overcome my fear and to actually make it seen. Another thing that you can do to overcome these fears is generally, this applies to basically any fear, where the basic framework for overcoming and dissolving fear is as follows. Recognize the difference between the fear and reality. So an example of this might be that you have a fear of elevators, which would be perfectly fine. Maybe you had a bad experience in an elevator at one point. And so what you may say, for example, to a therapist is, I know that 9,999 times out of 10,000, an elevator is safe to get on. I know that, and yet, even though I know it intellectually, it doesn't feel that way. And so having that discernment alone is the first step. It gets you part of the way there. Just knowing the difference between reality and your fear. That's what is meant by that. And then in that knowing, the key to dissolving the fear is to take what you know to be true and place little bets on it over time. This is what exposure therapy is. This is exactly the principle of exposure therapy, where maybe you just start by getting near an elevator and then you step in and then step out. Do it in short, controlled bursts, and then pay attention to how your mind will tell you that it's not safe. And this is perfectly fine. It'll make you feel unsafe. But your job is to stay grounded in the reality of the situation and take little calculated bets, little calculated exposure, ideally with the help of somebody else, even a professional or a friend or anybody that can help you, and then move consciously into the experience of fear. Fear is always further entrenched in place if you either run from it or if you fight it. But if you just simply move consciously into it, merging with it with full awareness, then the fear will dissolve in your presence. This is the basic methodology for dissolving fear. Another thing that you can do to become comfortable putting yourself online is to move from what I call pre-validity into validity. So I made a whole other YouTube video called How to Overcome Imposter Syndrome, which spoke about this. But the basic nut of that video was to move from pre-validity into validity, which means to understand, or rather to recognize the ways in which you feel like you're not yet the thing you're trying to become. You're not yet the real deal. You don't feel like you're on par with the rock stars up there that you admire so much, and you put them above you and you put yourself below them. This is to make you invalid or not yet valid. You don't see yourself as real, do you see? And yet you can make a decision at any point. There's no actual finish line for you to cross out in the world. You can make a decision right now to cross the finish line now and see yourself as valid and declare that you are valid, to declare that you are the real thing, the real deal, and to show up for the world in that way. This is, for example, a decision that I've made. I've made it like in kind of little steps along the way over the years, but in very significant ways recently, of just not holding anybody above me and seeing myself on par with my heroes. Good Lord, what a difference. What a difference. I feel so much more comfortable talking to you now. I feel like I can just look at you and tell you things with authority. I trust myself, and you can trust me now as I say this to you. I'm so much more effective. I'm so much more stable because I've moved into validity. So this is another thing. Here's another thing. So on the subject of not wanting to be obnoxious, here's something that you can reassure yourself with, is that there are these 3 stages along the line of self-expression, where the first one we can call the selfish stage, where as children, as toddlers, and even as teens, we are quite selfish. And as a result, we have no problem taking things from people, taking up space. We have no problem yelling, raising our voice. We have no problem taking advantage of people. This is just when we're in a low level of maturity. And if we're fortunate, as we move into adulthood, we move into a place of self-awareness, of self-consciousness. And then usually with a little bit of pain, we look back on what we came from and we go, oh, that sucks. I can't believe I did it. How embarrassing, how cringe, right? And then there's a little bit of wounding left over, where if we witness anybody else that is still in the selfish stage, we get mad at them for not being where we are. We judge them. We think they're bad and they're evil, this kind of thing. And so that's fine. But then part of that is that when we say we want to create some stuff and we want to move along the journey of self-expression, because we so much don't want to be selfish and like the way we were, we don't want to be obnoxious or pushy. And so therefore we ignore all marketing principles and just put stuff online. And we say, oh, I don't care about the marketing stuff. I don't care about the imagery. I don't care about the framing. You know, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to put stuff online and who cares? And then it's promptly ignored. This is the story of my marketing journey for a long, long, long time. And so a lot of people stop at this phase in the journey, but then of course there is a third step, which is from selfishness to self-awareness to self-expressed, where now we return to a willingness to appear on somebody's screen, to appear in somebody's life. And we feel comfortable making something and putting it out in the world and saying with our authority, this is good. I made something that's good. You should watch this. It would be good for you to watch this. You will benefit from watching this or hearing it or interacting with it in some way. The world would be benefited if you shared this with other people. And you can say that in a way that's completely grounded, mature, wise. It's not arrogant at all. There's no yelling about it. There's no neediness about it. There's no insecurity about it. There's just a knowing of what I made is good and good things should be exposed. And you don't need somebody to come along and judge it for you with their authority to say that it's good. You say it with your own authority. Again, if you want to learn more about this, check out that video about overcoming imposter syndrome. So stand by your work. I remember creating some work before where I'd put something posted online and kind of abandon it, like, oh, I hope nobody watches it. Stay energetically tethered with your work. And then finally, understand the concept of your comfort zone. Remember that everything that you do publicly is uncomfortable at first, and then it becomes comfortable. And And you'll find it for different facets. Like, for example, I became really comfortable putting stuff on YouTube here. Like, this is within my comfort zone. I feel fine doing this. But I made an ad recently on a local Facebook group to teach piano. And that was nerve-wracking because I'd never posted on that particular, local Facebook group before, even though like this is kind of, you would think this is kind of a bigger deal than that because it was just a little text ad. It was new. And so I expanded into new territory. So whenever we expand into new territory, there's always this membrane of fear. It's always unknown until we do it, after which it becomes known. And so it can benefit you so much to just simply accept that principle that doing something new is nerve-wracking, but then once it becomes known, then it's easier the next time around. Then it doesn't have to stop you so much for so long, because some people just get stopped for months from doing an otherwise very simple task like creating an ad or posting a YouTube video or making a song or reaching out to a potential collaborator, like an effort that would cost like 32 calories of your personal physical energy, but it'll stop you for years. So just knowing this principle helps. So that's it. That's a handful of things you can use to feel comfortable putting yourself online. And this will move you along the journey of self-expression, which is a cornerstone of self-actualization. If you're interested in my work, check out my links below. I'm an actualization coach. You'll learn all about that you need. Kindly hit like on the video for me. Appreciate it so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.